Hello, we're the Cryptid Code. We're your hosts, Harmon,
Kenzie,
JP,
and we like to talk about cryptids and aliens and generally anything spooky.
and we cuss a lot.
Indeed.
Also, tonight we have partaken in several alcoholic beverages, so be prepared and make sure you drink responsibly.
So I think it's actually my week to be presenting the cryptid.
Mm-hmm.
And I have something a little special planned for you all because we are actually leaving the United States.
Woo!
Specifically, we're going to Vietnam, boys.
Ooh, are we listening to some CCR on our way there?
I got Paranoid, I got Fortunate Son, I got all the hits ready.
Mm-hmm.
Is it sad to say that I don't know what CCR is?
It's the band who made Unfortunate Son. Unfortunate Son, not
I don't know
Unfortunate Son.
those musics.
Oof.
You've 100% heard it before, I promise.
So, specifically, we're actually going to the highlands of Vietnam. It's actually a sparsely populated part of the country. Not a lot of people live there. And the people who do tend to be part of the hill tribes who kind of habitate that area. And those hill tribes are a part of the reason not a lot of people go there. They'll repel both foreigners and even the Vietnamese from going up there.
Wait, do they like kill him?
Historically, sometimes.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a rough time. So the Batutu, also known as the Rock Ape, is described as being anywhere from 3 to 7 feet tall, muscular, stout, and bipedal. They're apes with a variety of hair colors. They can be red, brown, orange, and even black.
So that there's multiple that have been seen.
Oh, they're seen in groups.
Oh, okay.
Large groups.
This isn't like Sasquatch where there's like only one at a time.
It's like Sasquatch in large communities. Like, there have been sightings of up to 8.
Oh.
And some descriptions have said up to hundreds of them.
Oh my god! It's like their own
They have
private
like villages.
army.
Holy shit.
Well, what makes this odd is they have absolutely no fear of humans. It's not like Bigfoot in America will try to like avoid contact with people and generally flee from us. No, the Batutus, they don't give a shit. Now, despite how few foreigners actually go up to the mountains throughout history, we actually do have some early sightings. The first written mention of the Batutu is in 1820 with a French ship captain named El Rey, who spoke of a missionary who told him stories of ape men who lived in the mountains of Vietnam and described them as having tails, which is odd because typically the Batutu more resemble, Sasquatch. They're not usually portrayed as having tails.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't think I've ever seen, like...
So it's just Sasquatch with a tail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's common in, like, different breeds of monkeys.
Well, in monkeys, but these are apes. Apes don't have tails.
Okay.
Like gorillas. Or King Kong.
Yeah.
We're in Godzilla time.
Yeah. Team Godzilla, don't at me. That's all I'm going to say. Oh, and in 1830, 10 years later, it was mentioned in the writings of a French missionary named, and I apologize to this, I'm not very good with pronouncing things. Father Francis Isidore Gagelin. I think that's the best I'm going to get out of this. He wrote of the Rock Apes, but he called them, quote, a ridiculous fable. So he didn't actually believe in them.
Did he give like a reason why he didn't believe him?
He just kind of wrote it off as like folk stories from the natives.
Like a folktale that shouldn't have any credence.
Yeah. Not to say early 19th century explorers were racist, but a lot of them were racist and didn't really care what the natives had to say.
Oh, yeah.
The next writing of it was in 1895 with a French explorer named Paul d'Enjoy, who published an article in the... it was actually on the front page of the New York Journal about discovering a population of tailed wild men in Vietnam.
I like how he refers to them as wild men. That's
They
different.
probably just think they're like hairy people.
With tails, seriously?
People can grow tails.
Can they?
Mm-hmm. Your like vertebrae can like extend too far, and you'll have a tail.
Holy shit.
Usually not
fuck?
like as long as I'm assuming they're seeing, but like you can have a tail. You can be born with a tail.
Oh, he even claimed to have briefly captured one
Oh.
until it managed to break free and flee into the jungle.
Wait, what time period is this again?
1895.
Oh, so this is like just a little over 100 years ago.
Yeah. Hold on. I'm trying to think of something. Continue.
The next encounter was the famous French explorer Henri Matisse, who published accounts of, quote, the Vietnam wild man. And finally, there was an article in the Association of French Combatants for the French Union, Association of Combatants for the French Union, a publication where they'll publish articles written by French veterans. And the soldier didn't give his name, but he wrote that he was leading a detachment of native soldiers through Vietnam when he encountered one of the Batutus. He called it, though, I'm so sorry to my French teacher out there, le homme sauvage, or the wild man, like human savage. And
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. Can you repeat the year one more time?
which
when
one?
was this?
For the one I just mentioned, 1947.
Before that.
1895?
So the camera was introduced in military expeditions in between 1838 and 1879. My question is, if they had managed to capture this creature, I'm surprised that they didn't have access to a camera, I guess. I realize the camera wasn't necessarily the most popular thing in the world at that point, but if it was in that time period where Vietnam did have access to cameras, especially on military expeditions, like, why wasn't a photograph taken of, like, this suspicious species of ape that hasn't been seen before?
I don't know. It might have just been the difficulties of transporting it through the jungle.
Yeah, okay. I can see that. Like, I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen in the jungle, and there's a lot of things that can happen in a military expedition, so I'm not necessarily surprised that they weren't able to, but at the same time, I'm kind of questioning as to why, like, that wouldn't have been, like, their first thought. Like, that would have been my first thought. I just captured something that I've never seen before. I'm going to take a picture of it before it can, like, get away from me.
Well, then we don't know how long he held on to it, too, so...
Okay.
So, in 1947, there was a public article published in the Association of Combatants for the French Union. And it was from a French officer who saw one of these while leading a detachment of foreign troops. And he stated that his men were actually excited to see it. They saw it's like kind of a good sign. And his second in command, his native sergeant, explained that... all the locals knew the creature. It was actually pretty common to see them. And they actually refused to hunt it. Like, just as a tradition, that they don't actually go out and hunt or even eat these creatures.
So was it, like, kind of represented as a good omen, almost? Like, if you see it, if you come in contact with it, like, almost religiously, don't hurt it, don't do anything to it, because it means, like, good luck in some fashion.
Well, I actually read that... they specifically point out that they don't have any spiritual attachments to the Batutu.
Oh.
So it's not like the Yeti or the Sasquatch where there's like a spiritual meaning to it. They just, as far as I can tell, see the Batutu as just another animal. It's just, it seems to be the reason you don't hunt them, as we'll see in later accounts, is because they will retaliate.
Oh, so they'll like come back in force.
Yeah, they'll come back, and that's why you would see so many in large groups. Which brings us to the bulk of the sightings. The bulk of the sightings of the Batutu were, of course, during the Vietnam War.
Because there were so many people there at one time.
2,700,000 Americans served in Vietnam.
So that's basically on top of the population at the time of Vietnam, plus another 2 million fucking people. Yeah, I can see a lot more sightings than normal.
Yes, especially with how many groups of soldiers would go up and fight in the mountains, both American and Viet Cong and North Vietnamese.
Okay.
Which brings us to 1966 at the Battle of Dong Dinh. So, the mountain of Dong Dinh was also labeled as Hill 868. This is where the bulk of the Batutu sightings happen. And in 1966, a Marine patrol was heading for the jungle when they radioed into their headquarters, saying that they were hearing movement through the foliage. And they believed it to be the Viet Cong. They were ordered to hold fire to avoid giving away their position. So they were told not to fire, don't shoot. Later, the Marines radioed that the Viet Cong weren't actually people, that they were large bipedal apes that were just strolling through the jungle. For some reason, their commanding officer told them to throw rocks at them.
What?
Yeah, he was like, don't shoot, throw rocks to try and scare them off.
I mean, I guess that makes sense. It's kind of weird, though.
Yeah, because...
Like, well, don't waste your ammo. Use what you have around you.
Well, it gets dumber.
Oh.
They stated that when they threw the rocks, the apes would just... That was the clinking of glasses.
Cheers. Anyways, continue.
The apes would just pick up their own rocks and throw it back, but even harder.
That's so dangerous. That's so dangerous.
They were once again told to not fire. But now the apes were advancing on them, and the officer told them, if you need to, use your bayonets.
So they're not told... So these things are literally like retaliating, attacking them back. They're large things in the woods that they're not familiar with. And their first thought is, oh, just throw a couple rocks. Make them go away. And if that doesn't work, well, just hit them.
Yeah.
No one wants to be like, wow, why don't we just fucking shoot these things so we can go on our goddamn merry way?
I guess they really are just concerned about alerting the Viet Cong to where they are.
So it'd be kind of the equivalent of like, you know, guns make loud noises, and if anybody's nearby, okay.
Which, the radio picked up a bunch of screams as the Rock Apes just collided with the Marines. Which, I assume at this point they would just start firing, because you stop giving a shit when your life's on the line. Reinforcements were actually sent to find the patrol. They found several wounded Marines and a couple of dead Rock Ape bodies.
Oh! They found the bodies?
What do they do with the bodies?
Yeah.
No one knows.
What the fuck does that mean? Did they eat them?
Either they didn't bother to collect them,
because they were too concerned about their own Marines.
Yeah, with limited resources, plus with some experience about how this stuff works when the military encounters the paranormal, is that you're just told to report it and then keep your mouth shut. So these could have been disappeared on purpose.
But like, why would they be considered paranormal? You know what I mean? Like they're like a. You can easily look at this as a different breed of like the monkey species, the ape species.
But imagine like these are like on terms like Lucy, like the first bipedal.
Mm-hmm. Human.
Human's a loose term, but
humanoid.
Yeah. So like you might not want people hearing about this because it might freak people out.
Oh, I mean, especially with like.
Well,
the missing link debate.
Well, the Vietnam was like largely reported. Why do you think so many Americans like revolted against it? And so, in that sense, I can see why they wouldn't report it for more fear and more anger. But at the same time, if this is merely considered a new breed of a species we are already aware of, I don't see why covering it up would be like the smart thing to do. That's my opinion. I mean, like if I'm going to discover something that I've never seen before, like my first reaction would be to report it. Because like, why the fuck not? Yeah, like that's so cool.
I don't think it was the soldiers. If it was covered up, I don't think it was the soldiers who decided that. So much as they would tell their top brass, and the top brass would, make it disappear. So after this event became known as the Battle of Dong Dinh. And Dong Dinh became nicknamed as Monkey Mountain. It's actually what all the veterans would refer to the mountain as Monkey Mountain. Never Dong Ding or Hill 868. It was always Monkey Mountain.
Monkey Mountain.
Return to Monkey.
This is actually where they get their name of Rock Apes, because it was common for soldiers to report having rocks thrown at them. And I remember seeing one account about a guy was walking out of the mess hall and saw his officer just get beamed with one out.
Can you imagine?
And you like have your fucking slop and you walk out and you just get hit in the face with a fucking rock by a monkey.
I would be so pissed.
Just Sasquatch in the forest just yeeting rocks at you.
Which brings us to... Give me a moment. Flipping through my notes. The Steve Canyon encounter.
Steve!
He was also on Hill 868, Monkey Mountain, and his unit were testing suppressors. They were doing this by just kind of firing.
Just shooting into the air. Let's see how quiet it is.
I mean, how else do you test?
I guess it's true. It's just funny. They just went up to Rock Ape Mountain and went, all right, and it's just shooting into the air.
And they described that a rock ape was just watching them from the jungle. Not afraid, and they described it as barking at them, like a dog.
It was probably fucking annoyed. It's like, imagine like you're doing something loud outside, and your neighbor comes out, and he's like, shut the fuck up. Like,
yeah.
It was the same kind of thing.
But like, what do you mean by barking like a dog? Like, are you sure?
Yeah, that's their exact words. Bark like a dog.
That's probably just how they communicate. So
Well,
like,
but,
it
like,
was
if
probably like, shut up, fucking human people.
But I'm just trying to think of how to like express this. Like, Lady, my cat, she chirps, and it's this weird sound that she creates whenever she sees birds, and it's like a. So I'm thinking in reference to like apes or whatever the fuck this is. Barking wouldn't necessarily be barking, but it probably is the closest thing that they could think of to represent the sound so people understand. But at the same time, it's kind of like, come on.
It sounds like it was just trying to make short guttural bursts to be like, get out of my territory.
Okay.
If I had to guess, I mean, I don't have a zoology degree.
I took a zoology class once. I failed it, but I took it.
Once again, the tactic became to throw a rock at it. Because one of the Marines was described as picking up a rock and just lobbing it and, quote, hitting it directly in the face.
Sounds like some kind of game they play. Was it only with Marines that it would do this?
Well, it was Marines stationed at Dongdin.
Oh, okay. So there's... Okay.
So what? Their retaliation getting hit with rocks is to just throw it back instead of just like ending the whole thing.
They're like playing catch with these monkeys.
Exactly. They're like, wow, I'm so bored. Let me throw some rocks at these fucking.
I mean, I know a couple Marines that served in Vietnam, and they literally were just like, I would bore the entire time. You're either shooting at someone or you're bored.
They said that the ape retaliated by throwing rocks back at them and was actually joined by 20 other apes.
Yeah,
all
so
howling.
Holy shit.
I was about to say, when you go from like 1 ape to 20, that's when you get the fuck out of there. No, thank you.
Which it may also have been that the barking was it attempting to
like
gather
call other
others.
ones.
Oh,
That would be interesting. Okay.
I have a quote here. Quote, but those apes started to come at us, and we ran as fast as we could. And we didn't stop until we were out of the jungle. So they just ran back to their base. So that's pretty intense.
Can you imagine running from
an army of apes pops up, and they were like, we're getting the fuck out of here.
and
They just
run.
ran. That's funny as hell.
I mean,
Well,
what were they supposed to do, fly?
Well, they're supposed to like react to the situation.
Yeah, and they reacted by running away.
It's like fight or flight. Flight it is.
If you're testing suppressors, presumably on your pistols...
No, they're probably on their rifles.
Or rifles. I mean,
not that that matters, but...
Do you trust your M14 to get you out of, like, a 20-on-4 ape fight?
Have you ever, like, looked at the guns in, like, Vietnam? Because they were all shit. Like, the M60 was known to literally fall apart while firing.
And now you have to fight your ancient ancestor who was about to monkey punch you? To just ape punch you so hard you regret evolving.
I could not keep my tail.
One of the strangest accounts is in 1967. Wait, no, 1968 with Alfonso Villarreal. I'm so sorry, Mr. Villarreal. Please don't hurt me.
His ghost is going to come back.
Now, this guy isn't your typical cryptid witness. He is a respectable veteran. He was part of Company M, 3rd Battalion of the 5th Marines. He participated in 23 major battles during Vietnam. He was awarded the Navy Achievement Medal and a Purple Heart.
Oh, damn.
So
was the Purple Heart because a monkey attacked him?
No,
okay.
Not that I can gather. He was out with his platoon at night when they saw something approaching them in the darkness. They described it as like a black ball just moving towards them.
I don't think that sounds like a monkey.
No, wait. It was like very short and just kind of moving towards them. They couldn't make out any features. And it got so close that Alfonso literally poked it with the end of his rifle.
Oh.
What?
Yeah, he poked it with the end of his rifle, and the object responded by springing up, because it was like crouched, springing up, screaming, and running back into the jungle. And he says, quote, "It was a baby rock ape."
What the
What
fuck?
Literally.
Yeah, baby rock ape. And then he described that suddenly large boulders were coming down at them from a ravine above them.
So wait, what's the assumption that like above them was the rest of the Rock Apes
Like it was
family?
a scout or something?
17 rock apes responded to this little one's screams. 17 rock apes showed up and threw 300 to 400 pound boulders down at the Marines.
So like worried about their young.
Yeah, they seem very community driven and will retaliate very hard for any perceived threats. This is probably why the hill tribes avoided hunting them.
Well, yeah, I would fucking too if that was
Yeah,
that many.
If they just chuck boulders at the first sign of action.
No shit.
And if like you don't have modern guns, it's a one-sided fight.
Jesus.
Well, because you have to imagine, like, these are, like, giant boulders. Like, these things are extremely strong. Like, a fucking giant boulder hit you in the head, you're dead.
The platoon opened fire, so these things, with no fear, just attacked an entire platoon of Marines, and the platoon had to violently force them back into the jungle by opening fire. They killed a few of them, but never recovered any of the bodies, so it's possible that they dragged them off.
Like, the
something.
apes themselves collected their dead.
That could be a lie. They keep leaving them. Because, I mean, humans like to collect their dead.
Yeah.
So why not?
And it can be understood that, like, if you look at a lot of different ape species and stuff, they are relatively intelligent.
Well, a lot of just animals in general like to, elephants will collect the skulls of their dead and, like, mourn them.
Aww. I have a newfound respect for elephants.
I love elephants so much.
Aw, that was so cute.
This is an elephant episode now.
So, the same year, we have the report from Robert Bard, who wrote of this in his journal. He was in camp one night when they were surrounded by strange noises from the jungle. His Mexican-American corporal named Pancho went out to investigate. On his way back, they heard Pancho open fire with his rifle several times as he'd start booking it through the jungle.
I'm just thinking about the fact they named him Poncho. That's fucked up.
Supposedly, Pancho saw a bush that was not there before, and it snorted at him, causing him to fire. He just opened fire on this bush. So apparently these things can blend in very well.
I feel like that might have been Poncho, like a little, off his rocker. Because there were a couple people in Vietnam that would, like, bring weed and things with them. So he might have been a little zwinked.
Before he went out in the jungle?
Yeah, dude. Have you ever read, like, the things they carried? Their friend got shot, and they were just like, all right, let's smoke some dope.
What if he just, like, shot a person?
I
And
mean,
to cover his war crime, he's like, it was an ape.
I mean,
It was a rock ape.
It was a pretty terrible war, so I mean, I wouldn't put that past it either.
I mean,
Well,
no
but
offense
you also
to
have to
Poncho,
consider
just-
that like they're so used to things like moving around and having to expect the unexpected.
Yeah.
So like one slight movement, it could easily have been like some kind of normal animal. Like I don't know if deer are normal, but
I mean, there are just apes in Vietnam.
like,
There's
but, like-
orangutans.
But like one simple movement of something in the tree, and your worst fear is, oh my god, I'm about to be murdered. So you shoot at whatever moves. And in this situation, like he might have quote unquote heard like this bush snort, but like you have to imagine like the fear and the paranoia that you're experiencing like in that moment. So I will say that, I mean, I'm not necessarily surprised by his reaction.
Yeah.
Or he was just straight zoinked out of his mind. Just smoked a bunch
It
of
could
dope.
be like a combo.
Yeah. I forgot what I was about to say.
I apologize.
So I guess it was not important. But the diarist quote is saying, quote, what he had encountered was the ubiquitous rock ape of Vietnam. I had come to learn that they were nearly everywhere and quite fearless. That is what we had heard that night near the wire. So that's actually one of the bigger things about it. Like I mentioned, they have no fear of people. So that's why we encounter them so much is soldiers would be out on patrols and just run into them. They'll just literally walk into each other.
Can you imagine how terrifying that has to be?
Not for the rock ape.
The rock ape's fine. I would be fucking scared out of my brain.
Rock Ape's got his rock ready. He's ready to go. Ready to rock.
Ape, rock ready.
And it leads to a lot of encounters where the Marines would open fire because they think the apes are Viet Cong. Understandably.
Yeah.
So then the apes would retaliate a lot, I assume?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like in 1969 with Michael Kelly. He was part of D Company of the 101st Airborne Division.
Huh.
They encountered 8 apes on Nha Mo Tao Ridge. They were mistaken for Viet Cong, so the Marines opened fire with rifles and grenade launchers.
Holy
Jesus
shit.
Christ.
Imagine you are a monkey and you're walking through and you're like, oh, where are all these people at? And then you just fucking explode.
Return that to monkey. They report seeing ghostly images moving through the jungle, moving through the trees. As they were moving so fast, it was just flashes of rock apes.
And Jesus Christ.
And they opened fire at them. They, quote, sounded like dogs barking. He described that most of them were 5 feet tall and reddish, except for one. Most of the rock apes actually weren't fighting. Only one was. Presumably the alpha male, who had black hair. He actually rushed the soldiers while the others fled. And eventually fled back into the jungle.
Well, it's a means of protecting, like, the rest of, like, their colony, quote unquote. Like, creating, like, a distraction so the rest can get away.
It's actually stated that this is a known behavior for silverback gorillas.
Oh.
Okay.
That the alpha male will kind of, like, distract attackers and let everyone else run.
Huh.
What's strange, though, is despite all the shooting that they did, no bodies were found, but no blood either, and no fur. So
It was like it didn't even happen.
yeah, so it's like they didn't even hit these things. Even though a lot of the soldiers said that they were pretty sure they hit the alpha male point blank. So this might be leaning to like the supernatural aspect of it is a ghostly image. Or these things are tough as shit.
Or they're just that fast. Like, can you imagine trying to shoot at something that's coming at you at like 50
Just
miles per
lightning
hour?
speed.
Yeah, there's just no way that you can get contact with it, even if you think you did. And also, like, I feel like a lot of these situations happen when it's fucking dark outside.
Yeah.
Like, how are you supposed to really determine any of this? I mean, you can't see it all.
Yeah. So, to add on to this, The Vietnamese saw these creatures too. It wasn't just American soldiers.
Right. Wait.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like, well, you mentioned the tribes already, and certain, like, colonies or villages that were aware that these creatures existed.
But the North Vietnamese, who were new to this region as well, were like, these creatures are unnatural.
Oh.
We don't... And they treat them as a cryptid as well. In 1970, the North Vietnamese Hanoi Paleological University sent out an expedition and actually found footprints from one of the batutus.
Oh.
And made plasts of it. Plastered prints.
Oh.
What's really strange is a lot of people write this off by saying, well, it's communist propaganda. They're trying to look good by faking finding this unidentified species. But that same year, a British zoologist by the name of Dr. John McKinnon found similar tracks and plastered them as well. And they were shown in the Fortean News of the World Japanese branch, a newspaper that writes about like the supernatural and the paranormal. They published his photographs. I couldn't find them, but he found the same tracks as they did.
Oh. But when they plastered them or whatever, did they like confirm that this was not a normal species of ape?
Yes, because John McKinnon in 1975 published a book called In Search of the Red Ape, and he firmly believed that a yet undiscovered species of ape lives in Vietnam.
Damn.
To add on, John McKinnon is not some kind of fringe zoologist.
Like, he is legit on every sense of it.
And he has had great success exploring the jungles of Vietnam. For 50 years before this point, one new large mammal species was discovered across the entire world. In 4 years, he discovered 3 new species of large mammals just in Vietnam.
Jesus Christ.
2 types of deer and a new kind of ox. All in Vietnam.
Well, then can you really be surprised if like a new species of ape came out from the same country?
Yeah. The North Vietnamese military, specifically North Vietnamese General Huong Minh Thai, organized an effort to kill or capture a rock ape, but failed because a lot of the soldiers didn't want to go after it.
Well, yeah, because they had so many experiences of the fucking things
They're
retaliating.
just, like, throwing fucking rocks at them.
Like
throwing boulders down hills. Like, what?
Just to make it sure, clear, Americans weren't the only ones being attacked by these things. There's been stories of American soldiers coming across the mangled corpses of Viet Cong fighters that were just torn apart by these things.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, one particular story was 2 patrols bumping into each other and firing at each other when a rock ape suddenly sprinted through the crossfire and pounced on one of the Viet Cong fighters.
So it just takes no prisoners. Like, everyone is an enemy.
Kill you, yeah.
The Marines retreated and came back and just found several dead Viet Cong fighters with their faces all contorted in horror.
Damn.
As it's 1982, the same North Vietnamese university sent another expedition out and found even more prints.
Well,
of the
hold
Rock
on.
Ape.
University?
Yeah, the North Vietnamese Hanoi Paleological University.
But can we talk about real fast that a fucking, like, collegiate university, like, educated, knowledgeable thing believed in this so much that they sent out people to, like, research it and collect information about it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can't deny that that's actually really impressive.
Yeah, and then they found something.
Ooh! That's even better!
The footprints.
Yeah!
Yeah, that they plastered. Which apparently were very similar to John McKinnon's.
So it's understood that John McKinnon wasn't bullshitting, that he legitimately did find something.
That is 3 times they found similar tracks in the jungle.
Which, again, leads credence to the fact that this thing might actually be real.
The most famous account of the rock apes is actually in a book published in 2001 by Craig P. Jurgensen called Very Crazy GI, Strange But True Stories of the Vietnam War. And he describes his own encounter with the Rock Apes. It was, again, the 101st Airborne Division. He was out with 5 other guys. They were out moving through the jungle of the mountains, and 15 yards away from them, the trees started shaking.
Oh, that's not a good sign.
The men thought they were about to be ambushed by the Viet Cong and got ready to fight, but a head popped out of the trees. They described it as ape-like with reddish hair, and it stepped out to reveal it was 5 feet tall.
Damn.
The men actually argued about what it was, which brings me to what you said about the orangutans. One of the guys went, "That's an orangutan, isn't it?" And one of the soldiers replied, quote, "If it's an orangutan, it can't read a map. There's no orangutans in Vietnam." Because orangutans actually went extinct in Vietnam thousands of years ago. There are no orangutans in Vietnam. The men continued to argue about what the beast was, and eventually it just lost interest and left.
So it just stared at them till it was fucking bored?
Yeah.
But-
I was like,
This is
alright,
probably
peace.
the most peaceful encounter we've had with these things.
This is weird, though, that there's no orangutans. I have a friend whose uncle, supposedly their battalion had a pet orangutan.
Unless it was a rock.
I was about to say, what if it was like a rock ape, just like
And they just didn't realize
double
it.
agent, like, I'm fucking
But
sneaking
can we
in.
talk
That's how they
about,
knew
though-
where all the patrols were.
When you think of, like, animals that live in specific areas, I always, like, try to think about, like, how they camouflage themselves. And in reference to that, like, red fur in a fucking jungle is not, like, the smartest camouflage.
Well, when you think about it, though, like, there's a lot of rivers in Vietnam, and there's a lot of clay, which means a lot of the dirt is kind of reddish.
Okay.
So they're probably not, like, bright red. They're probably like an auburn kind of color.
On the
like
flip
an
side-
orangutan color, which isn't,
Yeah.
it's more muted. Okay.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, I don't think they give a fuck about hiding.
That's true.
I feel like
people
if-
just keep seeing them walking around.
If
Well,
a creature
that and
walks
with
up
the
to
way
it, they
they
just
attack.
stave its head out.
Yeah, like the way they attack and how they're always in groups, even if they look like it's only like one or a few of them. Like, you gotta imagine that they don't give a fucking
Yeah, they
shit if they
definitely
come in contact with an enemy.
Seem like they are predators,
Like
not
if,
prey.
if
like they're at
a-
the top of the food chain, similar to how humans are.
Kind of.
But you have to also relate to the fact that a lot of ape-like species are related to us in some fashion, so it's not surprising that they can handle their own.
like if a tigers live in like Southeast Asia, right?
I believe so, yeah.
If a tiger wanted to fight one of them, they could just beam it from half a mile away with a 400-pound boulder.
That's fine. Just continue.
So that's actually all I have on the Rock Ape, which brings us to our conclusion. Do you all believe in it?
You go first, Harmon. What is your opinion?
I firmly believe in the Rock Ape. Like, more than likely, there is an undiscovered ape species hiding in Vietnam that hundreds of people have seen. We have the footprints. We have dozens of accounts, and veterans speak about it like it's fact, not like it's speculation.
like a myth or something. And
Yeah.
like I can agree with that. Like even villages, different tribes, and then just the soldiers in general that have all come in contact with this. It's been written about. There have been no photos, which is disappointing to me, especially considering that the camera was around in this time period. But I mean, plastered footprints, I feel like that's enough evidence. So I'm gonna have to agree. I think this is real.
I'm very close to saying yes to this. My only problem is the fact that they found so many and they killed a few, that there's never any bodies.
Well, the problem might be transporting it.
Like, you have to
But
imagine.
still, like
If
They're in
it's-
the middle of a jungle. They won't have like the proper equipment to necessarily drag a corpse across
But,
to
like,
get it to people who
what
can
about
figure
this
it out.
university? Like, they didn't take pictures?
No, they never found a Rock Ape.
Oh, they just found...
They
They
just
just
found the
the
footprints.
footprints.
But there were they act like there's so many. Like, I really want to say yes to this, but the fact that there was never a body found, I'm saying maybe.
So wait,
I'm not saying no.
I want to know like the percentage of yes. So like
It's like 80. It's like 90% yes.
and 10%
It's
no.
like 10% no. So I'm very close to a yes.
What if it was a cover-up, though? To
What?
get rid of the bodies?
I mean, it could have been, but it also like, I don't know. Like, what if it's just Viet Cong propaganda? Like, they just found this thing, just like
But
when we
it
talk
wasn't
about
just
this.
the
But it was
Viet
found by
Cong.
the British.
It was
too.
found by the British. It was found by the American soldiers. It was by tribes that were there in Vietnam. And then it was also the Viet Cong. And these are people who were enlisted into the Viet Cong that had never been to that area to begin with. And they come face to face with these creatures they've never seen before and get attacked.
I don't know. It's a very strong maybe, but just because there were so many bodies and they never found any.
On the flip side, though, Marines might not realize they're dealing with a cryptid.
Yeah.
If you're unfamiliar to the region, you might not know that that's something
species.
out of place.
Yeah, exactly.
You
And
might just think of it as another ape.
Well, and you can't, like, forget about the fact that these animals more than likely took their dead with them.
Like
the elephants or, like, humans.
Or, like, one of the soldiers even called it an orangutan, so they might have just thought of it as an especially aggressive orangutan, so what's the point of getting the bodies?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm still not saying yes, but it's a very strong maybe.
Is this the closest we're getting to a unanimous?
For so far, yes.
Alright.
I'm still not saying yes, but I'm like 90% there.
What can get you to 100%?
The bodies. Or at least a picture. Even like a fuzzy picture.
That's where I am. Like, I feel like if there were images taken of these creatures, I would be 100% yes. Currently, I'm 99%, which is basically
the
a
footprints
yes.
being found multiple times
By different sources.
And different sources seeing the
The
things
amount
in
of people
person.
that are like, yeah, we saw it just casually, like they weren't looking for it. But just like the fact that and like they say there's so many. Like the fact that sometimes they were found in the hundreds, but like there's no photo evidence. You can't tell me someone in the 2000s.
Well, how good were cameras back then?
I mean, they're black and white, and they more than likely took several minutes to expose properly.
And these things attacked at night.
And
they're nocturnal.
There's probably no real way to have flash.
But still, like nobody
but
in
yeah,
today's
I agree.
time went out and did that.
Yeah, I was about to say, if these things are considered still like a current cryptid, why wouldn't anyone try to go find them?
I don't know. It's just a lot of people
Don't want to risk it?
Well, would you want to go out there? What if you
Fuck
do
no.
run into
I don't
this
want to
thing?
get my head
did they
crushed.
Did they ever like kill anybody, or were they just very violent?
They killed
They
people.
killed the Viet Cong fighters a few times.
That's right. They did kill them, supposedly.
Yeah.
And they apparently attacked plenty of Marines, and some
But
did
none
die
of our soldiers died. Correct.
I think they
not
did.
that I can find.
Okay, but they were injured.
A lot of them were injured.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just, yeah.
But 80% is pretty good for the...
Oh, 90%.
He said
I'm 90.
90.
90%.
I'm real close. Like this is real.
So JP
good.
is 90%. I'm 99%, and Harmon is
100, baby.
Yeah, like if there weren't so many, but no body found, I would believe it. But since there's literally a colony of 100,
and there was no
nobody
body.
has a body or a picture. I don't know.
Right, but on the flip side, how often do you just find a dead animal in the forest?
Pretty often. I just gotta walk out there and I'll find something.
When you're shooting at them.
True.
But like you have to also consider like the amount of times here in good old West Virginia that I have gone into some woods. I have found plenty of dead animals.
That's true. You can just walk down the side of the street.
And there's dead animals. And even if, like, in another time, like, it's not that hard to find, like, corpses. Like, I have found so many skeletons. It's unbelievable. I know that sounds terrible, but, like, I'm serious.
They weren't people skeletons.
No, they weren't.
I don't think.
I found, like, a deer skeleton before. Like, a full-on deer skeleton, which was so crazy to me, but it was right off the road. Like, but it wasn't hit by a car. It was, like, in the woods, but it was right off the main road. So why wouldn't they be able to find skeletons of these rock apes in the middle of the fucking jungle? Like, I don't get that. Like, you should have come across it at least once.
But I guess on the flip side, if they did, most people would just think it's an ordinary ape. Especially if you're like a Vietnam era soldier, you don't really give a shit about apes.
Well, because at that point you've seen so many, you're just kind of like, ape, move on along. We don't have to be concerned about this. We should be worried about, like, the other threat.
So, on the flip side, Jake, if you don't think it is a rock ape, What do you think they are encountering out there?
Yeah, what's your 10% tell you?
I mean, are there any kind of ape in Vietcong? Or not Vietcong, Vietnam?
There are regular monkeys, but none that throw stones, to my knowledge.
So, no large group of tailed ape creatures that throw rocks exist in Vietnam.
There is a small... There's a population of small monkeys that live in Vietnam, but the thing is, they're described as living in the trees predominantly. Rock apes are always described as being on the ground. Secondly, they're not as big as the rock apes are described to be. They're like around 3.5 feet. And the biggest part is they're usually white.
And these are like a combination of like red and black and brown.
I still think they could be like, Viet Cong taking the myth. Like, yeah, they have people who were possibly killed, but they could just make their dead look like they were.
But why were they throwing 400-pound boulders?
And don't forget about the fact that it wasn't just the Viet Cong that saw these things. It was also the Americans.
No, it was everybody.
It was also the British. It was also the tribes
imagine,
people. It
like,
was also
the
villages
Viet Cong
of people.
get into
but,
this.
Like, you have to imagine, like, drugs are not cheap. Like, in today's world.
Why are we talking about drugs? What the
because
fuck?
you're talking about, like, what they could be possibly on that would make them
I
see
never
these
said
things.
they were on
No,
anything.
I'm confused because now you have to get a Viet Cong volunteer to run unarmed at a patrol of American soldiers.
And have to be, like, covered in fur.
I can 100% see them doing that.
But, and then not die?
Because they were always told not to shoot it.
I can see...
But they did shoot at it a couple of instances and there was no corpses.
I can see an American soldier shooting a rock ape and disregarding it, thinking it's a regular ape. I can't see them doing the same thing, and then they touch the ape and find out it's a Scooby-Doo twist with Viet Cong.
Yeah, take off the fucking mask.
Found them. There were no bodies.
But they did find them, and
Like
there
they
were
said
bodies.
there were bodies.
We saw them, but they disregarded them or left them because they were too concerned about their wounded, or they were too concerned with, oh shit, we had a fire, or we had a fight. Now it's attracting too much noise. Exactly.
And there's also just like, you're there to fight a war. You don't really give a shit about monkeys.
I don't know, man, because there's a lot of like veterans that like take trophies. Like my great granddad was my great granddad was a World War I veteran, and when he killed people, he would just in the middle of combat just take fabric out of the coats and he made a blanket out of it.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I have the blanket, by the way.
So what would you suggest that they're gonna take like a patch of fur?
Yeah,
They're just gonna take
take their head, dude. Like soldiers did that. I mean, not as much now, but back in the day, like I can see like a Vietnam soldier being like, "This thing looks fucking weird. I'm gonna take its skull."
You have to consider the mentality. A lot of people don't necessarily have the serial killer, literally, mentality of taking trophies. Some of them look at it as like, "Oh shit, I just killed somebody. I need to fucking move along before like I get too attached to this specific situation."
I don't know. Like think of all the World War II vets that took like Nazi memorabilia when they killed them.
Well, you gotta think back to like fucking Vikings or whatever the fuck generation
like, it's
where
a
they
common
cut off heads
thing.
and put it on a fucking rope and carried it with them.
It's a common thing when you're a soldier
but at the same,
in another country to just take stuff.
You
can take stuff
after battle.
Yeah, you can
and
take
right now
stuff,
you need
but
to get
like,
out of the jungle.
Exactly. There comes a point where it's like fight or flight again, where you killed something, and do you stick around and try to kill like 20 more, or do you fucking flee to save your own skin?
Plus, their commander was there, so it could have been like, don't
like
touch these.
flee,
Yeah.
like let's go, like we need to be out of this area immediately, or we're all gonna be mowed down.
Yeah. He sounds like a very cautious dude, given his don't fire, don't give away your position order. So it makes sense that he would be like cautious about handling these things.
Yeah, like leave it the fuck alone. Let's fucking go. Like and if you consider like I guess the quote unquote like what I said, serial killer idea of like getting like trophies. Would you rather get a trophy from a fucking animal that you killed or from a fucking human? Personally, I'm not saying I'm a serial killer, I'm a psychopath, or any of these things. But, like, when you look at it in that kind of situation, if you kill an animal, what the fuck ever. Yeah. Like, that could either be for food or because it was trying to attack you. Whatever. Your goal in that specific point in time is to defeat the enemy. And the enemy is not an animal. It is another person. So if you take any kind of memorabilia, it would be from a human, not an animal.
I see it more as we're coming in with a mentality that this is a cryptid. Why, to them, it's just another thing.
I don't know.
But
It's just another thing in the woods that they're not familiar with.
But I am glad to get you to 90%.
I went 90%. I still think...
Not 95?
Not 95, no.
You can't give me a little bit more?
I'll give you a 92.
92? Yeah! That's a victory. All right.
That is my only problem, I will say, is that I don't know what else it could be.
Yeah.
But the fact is just no bodies were found. Or were kept. I shouldn't say found. Kept.
Well,
Hey.
the world may never know. Just like how many licks it takes to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop.
321.
Actually, I think it's around 200 and something. I did a science project
I just
on it.
made my number up.
I did a science project on it like a bunch of years ago.
Really?
Yeah, I've had a lot of alcoholic beverages. Don't mind me.
We're the Cryptid Code.
Yeah.
Have a good night and stay spooky.
Woo! Goodbye.
Team Godzilla.
Ignore that.
Monkey is wrong.